broadcasting from the studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. It's the Ken Calvert Show with your host, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the casual studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. Tino.
Hello.
How are you, Pally?
I'm feeling great, man.
How do you want to be introduced?
Tino G. I've been using that quite a bit because, you know, the Bob Dylan thing. Instead of Robert Zimmerman, Bob Dylan. So I've been rocking Tino G.
You know, I'm going to be laughing a lot as we do this. You are a white man lost deeply in the blues, aren't you?
Thank God.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
How did that happen? You know, we're going to start right now.
Cool.
This thing is just going to roll right now.
Use whatever you want.
We have chemistry and history in terms of radio meets rock and roll meets the blues, studios, venues.
Yes, we do.
You name it, we've been together on many occasions. We met when? When were you in the progressive blues band?
Yes, I was the drummer.
Yep.
And vocalist. I was doing double duty there.
And it was with Lowell Caulfield on guitar.
Yes, sir.
Who I was convinced was the reincarnation or the twin brother of Roy Buchanan. I thought he played a lot like Roy Buchanan.
That's a great compliment to Lowell. And, you know, I'm sure he'd appreciate that, Roy being such a major guitar force. But the main front man for the group was Willie D. Warren.
Yes.
The great Arkansas blues man who migrated to Detroit.
How old were you?
I was in my 20s.
Yeah. I believe we met at a place called the Blue Parrot.
The Blue Parrot, yeah.
Was that it?
Well, the Blue Parrot was interesting because it was a club in the suburbs that was trying to host blues, which was, okay, this isn't normal. But it turned out to be a really good thing. We had some great shows there.
So we're basically around the same age.
Yeah, we go back.
And we've done a lot of things together. Let's go here. Yeah. What are you doing now?
Well, lately, of course, music is still what I do.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate to have been able to support myself playing music and, you know, focus on it pretty much my whole life. And we have a studio and a record label, Funky D Records, and Funky D is myself and Linda Lexi, who's also my wife, and she's the VP, and I'm the prez, and we go out and record, you know, anything that sounds good, but mostly Detroit bands. A few have come from Mississippi, and so that's www.funkydrecords.com.
So if there was a young group out there that was looking possibly to record, could they go to your website and inquire about that?
Absolutely. And our motto is we don't make records, we make dreams come true.
Wow, that's a great slogan.
Thank you.
Or a mantra, if you will.
Right.
Do you ever regret when you see some of the other artists that you've been a big part of exploding and making fortunes? Do you ever regret that you weren't one of those guys?
Well, to be honest, no. I mean, it's like, to me, the blessing of playing music is the reward is playing the music, getting to play, you know. And I feel like I've been really fortunate when I look at kind of my resume, some of the people I've played with, you know, I mean, I played with Bob Dylan, you know, I've played with a lot of people, and you know, so I look back at that and go, man, I've been paid in full 5 times over because of the opportunities and all the basic fun I've been allowed to have, you know, playing music. And the money thing, a lot of the bands, it creates, you know, money's great, don't get me wrong, but it's not always all about the money. And a lot of it, you know, some of the guys, it doesn't always work out the way it appears in the movie. You know what I'm saying?
I'm thinking about Bob Seger, good friend of both of us.
Both of us, yeah.
Think about that. Think about how big Bob Seger is.
Right.
Martin Gross could have been, Tino G could have been that big. I mean...
Well, here's the other cool part. It's not over yet.
That's true.
Every day I wake up, I go, there's something exciting and new coming up around the next curve in the road. And I mean, you never know. I mean, just like a month ago, Wayne Kramer came to town with the MC50.
Yeah.
You know? Now, in his band, he had 2 guys from Pearl Jam, 1 guy from Soundgarden,
Yeah.
1 guy from Faith No More, 1 guy from Fugazi, 1 guy from the Zen Vikings, or the Zen Gorillas, and he was like, hey, Tino, we want you to come down and sing with us at Third Man Records. Now, you know, I'm looking around, I'm going, wow, I'm singing with Pearl Jam guys and MC5 guys. You know, like you can't put a price on stuff like that.
Sure.
You know.
I didn't mean to monetize it.
Right.
I was just wondering in those late nights when you're just sitting there going, God, I'm thinking about all these people, and I'm going to ask you to list.
Right.
I'm going to go through the roster of people that you've worked with,
Yeah.
performed with. Let's go there first. How many of those? You just said Bob Dylan.
Right.
How many musicians have you worked with?
Well, just to put it in another way too, like the guys I really idolize and look up to, most of them aren't these huge stars, you know, like it's almost like, you know, I would rather go and, you know, play tuba with Tom Waits.
Can you play the tuba?
No, but,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, than be like, you know, playing, say, you know, with Kiss. It just doesn't matter to me. You know, I go more for the music and the stuff I'm into than, you know, the high level showbiz approach, you know, and I think John Lennon suffered from that too. After the Beatles, man, he was like, jeez, I just want to get with Yoko and make a bunch of whacked out jams.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm really comfortable with all of that, you know, but I dig your question, man. I could, you know, you can always appreciate some cash, man.
But I'm not trying to monetize it. I'm
Right.
trying to tell people that Martin Gross, Tino G.
I need you for a manager.
Well, I'm more than available. You know, I mean, I do a couple of podcasts. You know what I mean? I can
Because I see where this is going. That everyone needs to know Tino, which I appreciate that.
What I'm trying to do is make people realize how excited I am to finally get you in a chair across from me to realize that you're no stranger to running with Eminem.
No,
and
man.
guys,
he's a good guy. He used to lift weights in the next room.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. This is like, to you, that's my scratch, if you will.
The best thing with Eminem was
See,
we were at 54 Sound recording,
Uh-huh.
and he walked by the door a few times, and we go, "Hey, Marshall, come on in here and listen to this," you know. And you know, we were doing a guitar track, and he goes, "Shit, I don't know nothing about rock and roll, man." He goes, "You all sound good, but I don't know nothing about rock and roll." And then a week later, we get this phone call that there's going to be a charity bowling event in, you know, Hazel Park, and Eminem's going to be there. So we bring our 2 daughters and her girlfriend from school, and Eminem grabs them and goes, "You guys are my team." And the next day, they're like, "Well, guess what we did? We went bowling with Eminem last night."
Right.
And I mean, this was at the peak of Slim Shady, you know. And I mean, so we all kind of know each other. Everybody's in Detroit knows one another. And
that's why I'm trying to establish your footprint, which I don't think you realize. I don't think you
realize.
I don't think you realize how big your footprint is and how important it is for me to sit across from you. I mean, it really is important for me to do this. To follow up on this real quickly.
Yeah.
You've played with Bob Dylan.
That was at the Fox Theater, and the little backstory is I've known his bass player who's still with him, Tony Gagne. Tony's been with Bob over 25 years now. And Tony and I played together in the 70s. And
where?
We were on an album that was called John Nicholas and Friends. And it had members of Asleep at the Wheel. Tony played bass, and some real blues heavyweights, Big Walter Horton and Johnny Shines.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it doesn't get any better.
Right.
So we cut that record in 77 for Blind Pig Records. And that's when I met Tony, who went on to become Dylan's bass player. Now, the interesting thing is just this year, the record was reissued, and it's up for a Grammy.
Get out.
It's up for a Grammy for best reissue box set. And I mean, it's like, this is what I'm talking about. You never know what's going to happen, man. You know,
You do not know what's around the next corner.
you don't
do
know
you?
what's around next corner. So
Yeah.
I'm sitting here now, you know, basically on a record that's up for a Grammy, and which is amazing. And the Dylan thing happened because Tony and I, being friends, when they would come to town, you know, they would be like, "Hey, we're coming in. Bob's going to do 3 nights at the Fox or whatever, and let's hang out." So I would take Tony and G.E. Smith and, you know, the guys that were in the Dylan band. They go, "We want to hear some real gut bucket blues, man.
Yeah.
You know, the real stuff."
Right.
So I'd take them into like some of the little blues hellholes in Detroit, and they'd see like the Butler Twins and Johnny Yard Dog Jones and just be losing their minds at how good it was. And they get back to the hotel, and, you know, sometimes Bob would be walking out as they're walking in, and they'd be laughing and, you know, "Hey, where were you guys?" "Oh, we were with Tino. We had such a good time." And they go, "Well, Bob said that next time you guys go and hit the blues clubs, he wants to come along and maybe sit in the corner, blow some harmonica." And I'm like, wow, would that be freaking cool, you know? And so that never happened, but they come to town, and I had the flu. I was really feeling crappy, man. And
You
I
had the
put on
blue-
this old...
You had the blues.
I had the flu blues. And so I put on this old vintage suit I had gotten at a secondhand store. I go down to the Fox, and
Yeah.
I see Dylan's manager in the lobby, Mitch. Mitch is like, "Tino, we were wondering when you were going to show up. Bob wants you to sit in tonight." I'm going, "Seriously?" He goes, "Yeah, we got a guitar set up and an amp for you. It's already on stage. And he's going to call you out in the middle of the show and wants to play some blues with you." And I was like, wow, you know. Now, meanwhile, the flu's kicking in. I feel like I'm on acid or something, you know. I'm all spaced out. And they happened to walk out in vintage suits identical to the one I had on. And it was almost looked like I was a part of the band the way I was, you know, we were all dressed alike, which was really odd. And so Bob calls me out, and we do "Dust My Broom" by Elmore James at the Fox Theater.
Sure.
And they go, "Look, when Bob looks at you, take a solo. Then when he looks at you again, stop." You know, and I go, "I get that. You know, that's easy."
Yeah.
So we just go out there, and we're rocking. He looks at me. I start, you know, throwing down my blues licks.
Yeah.
He's not looking back at me, so I keep going. He's, you know, I go, wow, he's digging it.
Yeah.
So then he turns around, he gives me this great look, man, of total joy and happiness. So I knew that was the time to quit soloing. He starts singing again, and man, everybody in the seats stands up and they're dancing in the aisles. It was like amazing, man. And then he introduces me, you know, Tino Gross, hometown boy, Tino Gross, you know, and I'm like, man, this just doesn't happen every day, you know.
Right.
So
That is an amazing,
yeah.
amazing story. I wanted to jump in so many times and interrupt, but I learned a long time ago, don't do that. Let the person answer the question. Is that a hallmark? Is that a standout moment in
That's
your
a
life?
standout moment because
Yeah.
like there's like a website for people that have sat in with Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
you know, and there's only about a dozen, you know, maybe 15 people, and it's, you know, Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Ron Wood, Tino Gross. You know, it's like, okay, you know, I'm like, wow, man, this is very rare, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Who else? Who else have you played with?
Bo Diddley,
You were Bo Diddley's drummer?
yes, sir, yeah.
So is that the title of my podcast? Meet Bo Diddley's drummer?
Well, he had a lot of drummers. You know, I wasn't the only one.
Wasn't Spinal Tap. They didn't all die, did they?
No. Both Bo and Chuck Berry kind of adapted a whole way of touring and doing shows where they just stopped bringing bands out on the road. Like they would just find
Oh, sure.
guys, you know, in each locality that were familiar with the groove and could, you know, play their music. And so in the Midwest for a while there, he was using me quite a bit on shows as his drummer, yeah.
Chuck Berry liked the cash. I remember we had him
So did Bo Diddley.
at a WRIF show.
Yeah.
And before he even walked close to a microphone, he wanted a briefcase,
Right.
and he wanted cash, and he was going to count it, and then he went out and said, "Hey, Detroit."
Bo was the same way. His contract basically was, the minute you see me, you pay me.
Is that right?
None of this after the show. And,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the
Yeah.
second you lay eyes on me, the first thing you do is peel me off the cash.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, he'd be in the sidewalk in front of the joint getting paid as soon as he got out of the car. And, you know, for good reason. I mean, those guys got stiffed a lot, you know. And then the contract says I need a good Fender amp. I'll have my own guitar, and I need a rhythm section, you know, bass player and a drummer. And also 2 giant rib dinners that he would eat. And I don't think they ever put it in writing, but then, you know, there seemed to be a lot of like real professional ladies hanging around some of these shows.
Is that
too.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean...
So writers are important to certain acts.
Absolutely. And I mean, the cool thing about Bo Diddley was he was so casual.
Yeah.
I mean, he would sit in the, like right in front of the front door of the venue when the people are coming in, and he'd just sit there eating ribs, you know, like none of this James Brown stuff where you're backstage until the spotlight and then you come out and people see you and go, oh my God, there's the star.
Yeah, Mazio would like bring him out there. Ladies and gentlemen, bump, bump, bump.
The Bo was real casual, man.
Yeah,
He just like, yeah, here I am. The minute you walk in the door, I'm eating ribs. But I'll tell you one thing. I learned more about stage presence and just how to work an audience from Bo Diddley than I'd say almost anybody. I mean, he was just a master of working a crowd. Such a natural, charismatic genius and, you know, architect of rock and roll. I mean, this guy was amazing, man. And
So you just brought up something I've never, ever discussed before, being an architect on stage.
yeah.
That's really important, isn't it?
Well, Bo invented things, you know, that
What did you take from that?
Well-
what are you doing now on stage?
Mm-hmm.
That I think the purpose of being the artist on stage
Right.
is to invite the audience to truly be a part
yes.
of the
Connect.
band, of the band, right?
Yeah, connect.
I mean, we're not performing for you.
right.
You know, we're performing together as a group, as a unit, as an audience, right?
Absolutely true.
Okay,
man.
so he was the architect. What do you do? Because you're the master.
Right. Well,
I don't think anybody commands an audience better than you do in a very subtle Tino G way.
Well, thank you for that, sir.
No, but I
you know,
mean that. You are really, really good.
Well, a lot of that comes from guys like Bo Diddley and, you know, where you see how it's done on the fly, too. Like Bo, for example,
Give me an example.
Bo could break a guitar string
Uh-huh.
on stage
Yeah.
and turn it into a 20-minute routine with that would just charm the audience, where he would put the new string on stage, and then as he was tuning it and bringing it up to pitch, you know, he'd and then he'd do a little dance while he was doing that, and he'd start doing these like robot funk moves, and then he would basically start chomping on the string until he'd bring it back into pitch, and then 1, 2, 3, and it'd be like something that was so enjoyable to watch, instead of this awkward moment of, oh geez, he broke a string, how embarrassing, what's he gonna do next? He'd just roll with it, man.
Almost pre-planned or staged, yeah.
Yeah, and he told a lot of jokes. I mean, he was a masterful entertainer, and you know, he had great stage patter, and you know, all that stuff that, you know, say Peter Wolf and all the front men.
I gotta say, I'm gonna interrupt you. I apologize for that, but Peter Wolf was the
Oh man,
he was large and in charge in terms of like, if you're not gonna
Yeah.
participate,
Right.
Then you guts to go home.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Wolf with the, ooh, bop, shabam, and oh, yeah, moo, shooby doo, and oh, you, this is your daddy, old radio, platypus, and papa, the boss man, the tail drag, the gangster of love. I'm the devil's son-in-law. Lord have mercy, we gonna rock tonight.
I know that you're home, and I know that you're not all alone.
All of that, man.
What's the name of the chick with the long hair?
Yeah. Reputa
the Buta.
Exactly.
Let me down your hair and let me climb up the ladder of your love, because I know that you're home, and I know that you're not all alone. It's Whoopa Goopa with the green teeth. Let me in.
Well, Bo Diddley's from that tradition. I mean, that's where a lot of this stuff comes from, you know.
But you sort of, you've taken a liking to in that style, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, you know, you're an entertainer. You're an entertainer.
That's I was going to say showman, but
you can be a songwriter and an artist as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but the reason the people are there is they want to be entertained.
I'm not a fan of people that just decide not to talk but play music.
Yeah, the shoegazing thing. You know, you just stare at the shoes and everything's kind of depressing.
So you agree with me on that one?
That doesn't feel right to me.
Uh-huh.
Some guys, it works, you know, but I'm not of that kind of thing. I like to interact with the audience and make everybody feel welcome and have a good time, and not do too much shtick, but still put it across, man, so that it's a fun time. The blueprint record for all of that was the James Brown Live at the Apollo, you know, where so many bands started their, you know, like Jay Giles and a lot of people. It was all about that record that made people go, wow, this is what a band should be. I mean, the MC5 said that too. The James Brown Live at the Apollo.
All of a sudden, when you talk, Tino, all of a sudden I go sideways and think of another thing that you utilized and still do. Go ahead. You can clear your throat, man. This is just raw
I'm good,
audio that we're going to just put up there on the Ken Calvert Show podcast. And thank you for joining us, Martin Gross, Tino G. Current band is the
Tino G's Dumpster Machine.
How are they doing?
It's a brand new band. We're doing great, man. We've got some really cool shows. You know, we've played some good festival shows last summer. We're looking to do more of that. We just dropped a new record.
Yeah. I want to get back to a couple of the things that we've been discussing and talking about, and then we can move on to those particular areas. In terms of incorporating the audience into your shows, one of the things that you have embraced are the horns. You've always been a fan of a horn section, correct?
Man, horns are a beautiful thing. You know, if you, you know, they're the first instrument of rock and roll. Uh-huh. Well, the drums are the first instrument, but then
the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Without a good rhythm section, doesn't have to be great. Without a good rhythm section, you're cooked, right?
You are as good as your drummer, basically.
Is that right?
Pretty much. I mean, you know, you can be great. If the drummer's not great too, hanging with you, you know, it's just going to stay at the level of the drummer's skills, you know. If the drummer's really cooking and in the pocket, man, that's what's going to push the whole show to the level you want it to be at, you know. Mm-hmm. So the drummer's key, man. I
always put it together as the rhythm section, bass and drums, but I've never heard that said before, that the drummer is the key to the show. And on behalf of all the drummers listening to this podcast,
well, I'm partial to
we want to thank you and get down on one knee right now, although it's a little difficult at my age, but thank you. We are not worthy as drummers. We are the brunt of so many jokes, but that is an important part of it.
Yeah.
Getting back to the horns.
Right.
You were a guy that utilized and likes to use horns. You were saying that they were basically at the forefront of music. Why did people try and avoid horns? Because they were so afraid of sounding like Blood, Sweat, and Tears or Chicago. Were they like not cool bands?
Well, no, I mean, to me, you know, if you look at the history of American music, there were a lot of sax players in the 40s, you know, that were like big crowd pleasers and, you know, Red Prysock, Illinois Jaquette, King Curtis. Every record had to have a horn, a sax solo in it. All the doo-wop records would have a break for a sax player. You know, it became very popular, and of course, swing music and jazz.
I love swing music.
You know,
sorry, guilty.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you had some of the, the big stars of music were saxophone players, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, all of that.
Alto Reed.
And then later Alto Reed. And, so the thing was, as music changed, after World War II, the economy changed up, and it was hard to keep some of these big bands on the road. A lot of the band leaders were like, firing all the horn players because I can't afford you guys. We're not getting paid enough to carry a 15-piece band anymore. So they started stripping it down to just one sax player, and it kind of started getting more funky, like rhythm and blues and soul. Then the electric guitar came along, and then the next generation was like all about the guitar, man.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Dad, I don't want that accordion, and I don't want the sax. I want a Fender Stratocaster. I want to be, in the Beatles, or Jimi Hendrix, or Elvis even, with Scotty Moore on guitar. The guitar became the thing. Now, me personally, I always loved saxophone, and, Dumpster Machine, we've got Dave McMurray's playing sax on some of our cuts, who's phenomenal Detroit sax player. He played with the Rolling Stones, he's part of Was Not Was.
Yeah, look at Bobby Keys. Look at how important that solo was.
Exactly, Bobby Keys. So
Can't You Hear Me Knocking? I mean, that
Beautiful.
song would not be as strong as it is without Bobby Keys rolling out that solo. So,
exactly, man.
And I think about Seeger now. Seeger, it took him forever to go beyond just alto and add the Motor City horns.
Right.
And where are they? Right up front. Usually 1, 2, or 3 in terms of how that set list goes. So,
yeah.
But I wanted to spend a little time on the horns because you appreciate every element of music.
Absolutely.
And all of the instruments. And I was talking with Chad Smith on the podcast not long ago, and he was talking about marching band in the early years.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your early years, man. How did you, where did you embrace this idea of doing something outside the ropes, if you will?
Well, it was like my parents got divorced when I was 7.
Okay.
I was growing up in Detroit, and so.
You're about my age. Was that hard?
Well, yeah, I mean, because nobody got divorced back then.
They did not.
It was
no.
like if you said, my parents got divorced, it was like, oh, jeez, oh my God,
People don't talk about that.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, that's
but it was a reality. So, my mom was like a somewhat of a beatnik. She's a painter, really good painter, and she was involved in the Wayne State Cass Corridor art scene, So a lot of hipsters were coming by the crib when I was 7, and, guys that my mom was dating or whatever. And, when you're a little boy at 7, you don't like every dude that shows up,
Right.
You're like, you are not my dad, and I'm going to strangle you,
Right.
and I don't care that, you know all about football.
Right.
I don't care about it. I'm basically, so I'm kind of like this, little dude, and a couple of the guys showed up were smart enough to bring me jazz albums. And so I got a couple things like Gene Krupa records, and one was called Gretsch Drum Nights at Birdland. And so I started getting into the drums. And then the other thing was I'd fish around on the dial and the hi-fi in the living room late at night. And hear all this CKLW, Keener 13, and then I'd tune in like late at night. You could get Louisiana.
You could get Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York City, get the 50,000 watt pure channel, man.
That's right. And I'd hear these guys like, and that Slim Harpo, man, with Baby Scratch My Back, like, ooh, shooby-doo, and how are you? This is John R., your radio boss down here in Shreveport, Louisiana. And if you send $12 to the station today, we'll send you a box of baby chickens. That's right. And these are clean, well-bred baby chickens that will cook up fine in your oven. And now here's some BB King. There's a world out there, man, that I need to know about.
God,
right?
you are speaking my language, bro.
I wanted to know. So I started getting into music out of a way to, save my life. And then a guy came around to our school in Detroit, And his name was Mr. Manguth, Michael Manguth. He goes, anybody here want to sign up for, band?
Yeah.
I raised my hand, and he goes, what do you want to play? And I go, well, I want to play the drums. So the guy goes, okay, go get a hockey puck and some drumsticks, and we'll start you tomorrow, So
Oh, a drum pad.
yeah, look, a hockey puck,
Yeah.
tata poo, mama
Get
papa,
out.
mama papa, So I start learning drums. I get in the school band, and we're playing, there's kids with tubas, trombones, trumpets, and we're playing just like what Chad was talking about, marching band.
Yep.
That's how they did it in Detroit. So I'm in the school marching band, but I'm starting to pay attention to pop culture, and I'm seeing, this was pre-Beatles. I'm seeing Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, Del Shannon, Bobby V, Elvis, there was like Gene Vincent, and it was like greaser rock,
Yeah, but all those bands had great drummers.
Great drummers, and it started really turning me on, man. And then boom, the Beatles hit, and I was already playing drums when everybody saw the Beatles, and like, oh my God, look at this. So I was like really drawn into music through the radio and records that people gave me. And then the interesting thing was, my first gig, there was a band that came to Ann Arbor from New York called the Brooklyn Blues Busters, and they needed a drummer. And a friend of mine, because their drummer from New York went back to New York, he hated Ann Arbor, he didn't want to stay there.
How old were you?
I was like 16.
Okay.
And 15 or 16, and so they were like looking for a guy, and somebody gave them my phone number. They called me, and I went and auditioned with these guys out in Ann Arbor, and they go, okay, you got the gig, you sound good, man, because I'd been listening to a lot of blues albums by then. So our first gig was with John Lee Hooker, and backing up John Lee Hooker, right? And I'm like...
And you're 16.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I want to try to talk to him. So I'm like, I go, Mr. Hooker, so, what exactly do you want me to do, And he just looks at me, he's got his gangster hat on and his snakeskin boots.
Yeah.
And he goes, man, don't worry about it. Just watch my foot.
Yeah.
And that was it, man. That was like a mantra for me. Watch John Lee Hooker's foot. And he'd just come out and stomp off, boom, 2, 3, 4, and he'd go into the next jam. And you could see the way he stomped his foot, what the beat should be, And what he told me was so simple. It was like, getting a college education right there.
Wow.
From John Lee Hooker, man.
16 years of age.
Yeah.
Learning from John Lee Hooker.
Yeah.
And it all started with the unfortunate divorce of your parents.
Exactly.
What about your pop? What happened with your dad?
Well, he was cool. he stayed in my life.
Uh-huh.
And, so we became great friends when I got older, and then, as things started moving like that, he started coming out to see my band all the time, see me play with the Howlin' Diablos at the Bears Den and all that kind of stuff. And he was very proud of me, and he'd always loved music as well. So he stayed in my life until he passed a few years ago. He was in his 90s.
Is your mom still around?
No, they're both gone.
Yeah.
But I had great parents. They were artistic people, and they
just
supported me.
They went their own way.
They couldn't hang together.
Yeah.
But, so.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
It's a great story,
It's
Tino.
true, man.
It's really amazing. Yeah. Who provided for your first drum kit?
That was another one of my mom's boyfriends.
Really?
One of the guys that was giving me the jazz records.
Yeah.
So they saw I was really taken to the drums, and there was a place on Gratiot and 9 Mile, East Detroit Drum Center, it was called.
Oh.
So they took me out there and got me this little 4-piece Gretsch kit.
Yeah. Have you been loyal to Gretsch ever since?
I love Gretsch drums, man.
Okay.
Because the jazz guys played them.
Sure.
So that was like, for me, Gretsch was I had the album Gretsch Drum Greats at Birdland, which was like, Elvin Jones, Charlie Persip, Roy Haynes, all these great jazz drummers. So I see a poster on the wall out there, and this was like, I was probably 11 or 12. And it says Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
We'll be doing a drum clinic here in the parking lot.
No way.
Yeah. So I was like, that to me would be like, kids needing to see Michael Jackson or something,
Yeah.
I was just obsessed with Gene Krupa, man, and there was that movie with Sal Mineo, the Gene Krupa story.
Yep.
Which, looking back on it now, was a pretty corny flick, but at the time, man, I just loved that movie, So I got my mom to drive me out to see Gene Krupa in the parking lot. And at this time, he was like kind of an older looking dude with white hair, and he had a little piano trio, and they played on a flatbed truck in the parking lot of Guitar Center or Drum Center. And I went through the line to get his autograph twice. And I still have him.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember I was such a fan. My first kit was from Grinnell's.
Yeah.
It's got a Born On date. Ludwig, I got the Ringo kit.
Nice.
I got the Blue Pearl, man. I had to have that. It was a 4-piece, and it was like dead on. It was it. And I had to wait. They had to order that thing.
Yeah.
And inside the barrels, that Born On date is still there, 1965. I would watch Krupa. I just said, quit now, man, because he could fly.
Well, Gene was also the guy that was a front man. He put the drums out front. I mean, he was like really one of the first bad boy rock stars.
Yeah.
He was wild. His hair had fallen his face. He had like that Jerry Lee Lewis kind of outlaw vibe going.
Right. He had those teefers too, man. He had some choppers that were like...
Yeah. He was hanging around with fast women, and he got busted with reefers. And, he just had the whole bad boy... Yeah. And the way he played the drums, they'd always put that crazy contrast lighting on him with the black spotlights and the shadows.
Yeah.
And real film noir looking stuff, and he'd be pounding out, with that maniacal look on his face, all tom-tom stuff.
Yeah, like he was on fire hurting.
This cat was way gone, baby, and I mean, you'd look at him and just go, that guy's cool.
Yeah. All right, so you were a drummer.
Yep.
Now you're a guitar player.
Yeah, I still do both,
Yeah.
But I front my own band, play guitar and sing, yeah.
You're happiest doing what in terms of playing?
Well, it's hard to, I'll always love playing the drums. That was my first thing that I started that so young that it's second nature, I don't even have to think about it. I can just sit down and play, and it's like, I guess, riding a bike, you never forget.
Right.
So I always love doing that, and it comes in handy in the studio a lot. We're maybe a band, their drummer's a little shaky or whatever, and I can jump on the drums or help that guy to tighten up his part. So there's a lot of benefits to being a drummer. Yeah. Iggy was a drummer. I mean, it's. Being a drummer is...
I did not know that.
Yeah, Iggy started as a drummer.
I always loved the beginning to Lust for Life, man.
Yeah.
That's got a strong beat to it.
But then you get into songwriting, and I think it gives my songs, too, a little extra maybe flavor that just from being a drummer, it gives you a good rhythmic sense, And, I mean, Keith Richards is a drummer, even though he probably doesn't know it, but the way he chomps out the rhythm with the Stones... Charlie Watts follows him.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to play this kind of American music, rock and roll, jazz, blues, whatever, rhythm is important. And being a drummer just can only make it better.
Wow. Tino G, Martin Gross, he's met a lot of people. He's done a lot of things. He's got a curious backstory that he just shared with us.
Yep.
And you're still getting up each and every day doing what you do really, really well.
Thank you, man.
And
I'm blessed.
So you're feeling like there's still a whole lot more in the tank.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, to me, the thing that people need to keep in their lives that is that feeling that you have when you're a kid. Mm-hmm. Of waking up feeling kind of excited, and that little tingle. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wonder what I'm going to do today, And
I know
that's what keeps you healthy and sane.
Yeah,
and treating people good too, as well. Like show business is up and down. And once you know that, like you go, well, It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down, it's sideways, it's up, it's down. What you should take from that is that anything can happen and every day could be different and tomorrow could be the very best day you ever had, you know. And if you keep that kind of as what grounds you and treat people good too, anything can happen for you, man. And, you know, that's the key right there, is to just don't let go of that, you know, good feeling about what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that starting point of first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
I look forward to it just because of the fact that I realize what I have to do today. And it's not what I have to do today. It's what I want to do
and
today.
You love doing.
And I don't have enough time to do everything I want to do today.
Right.
Today I knew that I was getting up to spend some time with Martin Gross, Tino G,
Right
you know, and it just was like, yep. And I started prepping and I started doing this. And I realized, man, you're not 67 years old. You're 31 years old.
Amen.
You're doing exactly what you were loving back then.
Right.
A couple of rapid-fire questions. You're
Yeah.
going to play the guitar for me, sing a song.
Yep.
A couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Iggy Pop asked me once, is Mitch Ryder in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I don't think he is.
No, I don't think so.
You spend time with Johnny B., gifted drummer.
Just got off the phone with him.
Johnny B. is a good drummer. Johnny B.
One of the world-class greatest drummers who, he's on my new record. And
I'm going to have Johnny B. on with your help on this podcast.
He would love to.
And if you would like to come back and co-host, man, I'd love to have you anytime.
Whatever you need, brother.
By the way, you, Martin, Tino G, Mr. Dumpster, Funky D,
right on.
Whatever you want to be known as, you ought to be doing a podcast.
You never know. It's like that kind of thing. You don't know what's going to happen the next day, and you need to be my manager.
I'll be more than happy to. For you, anything, my brother. Real quickly, Mitch should be in the Hall of Fame. How dare they for not having Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels?
Mitch Ryder, the MC5's not in it? How is that possible? I don't think Jay Giles is in it.
No, I think you get nominated and you think, oh, man, don't tease me with this.
Right.
I'll go sideways with you, Martin, because rock and roll DJs never got to vote.
Yeah.
It was like, wait a minute, man, when it mattered, it was us, the guys playing the records.
Right.
Why aren't we getting a vote?
Right.
You know, we know what the listeners want. We know who they want to.
Yeah, you do.
The obvious are already in the Hall of Fame. Okay?
Right.
It was on this date, as a matter of fact, that Keith Richards inducted Aretha Franklin, who didn't go for her own induction back in 1987. First female ever into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I'm just saying, Mitch Ryder should be in the Hall of Fame. Johnny B., as a member of the Detroit Wheels, should be in the Hall of Fame. Jimmy McCarty, my God.
To me, like, okay, you take the Detroit Wheels, and I've talked to B and McCarty at length. They're very close friends of mine. You know, what happened there was...
I make people talk so much that their voices get dry. I apologize.
No, this is stuff I care about. I love talking about it. But basically, nobody knew that rock and roll was going to become rock and roll. I mean, really, even Bo Diddley used to tell me that. He sold all his publishing, you know, for like $1 million or whatever, which the checks on that stuff are $1 million a week.
Yep.
You know, but he bought a farm down south. He had a little property down in Alabama, and he goes, Chuck Berry, myself, we didn't know this stuff was going to become so iconic. We kind of thought it was like, this is a fad, get it while you can. It's like a hula hoop, you know, it's just and go, bye. Like, you know, and so he goes, had we known
it's like a hula hoop.
What we had created,
you got a gift for it.
We wouldn't have sold it so cheap, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was no real sense that this music was going to become the backbone of American culture. And, you know, so Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, they were with Bob Crew, who had the Four Seasons and a few other bands. They were looking at it different. Like Bob Crew saw Mitch as the star, and bands weren't important like at the time. You know, it was like Motown. Nobody even knows who the band was. It's the singer, period. And they saw like Bobby Darin was really taking off with Mac the Knife and this kind of Vegas sort of, crooner style. Yeah. So they put Mitch with a big orchestra and sent him out to Vegas with sheet music and music stands and, and they basically fired the wheels.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then...
I never knew that
story.
Yeah,
they
really?
Yeah, they made Mitch a solo artist without putting any importance on the drummer or the guitar player. But then a year later, boom, bands started hitting the Doors, Jefferson Airplane, where Big Brother and the Holding Company. I mean, all this Frisco stuff started hitting where people were talking about the guitar player and the drummer as equals to the singer.
Yeah.
Ray Manzarek was as much a part of the Doors as Jim Morrison, So they missed the boat, man. And it was such a great act. And, Chrissy Hines tells a great story, the singer for the Pretenders, when she was just a young girl growing up in Ohio and she went to a state fairgrounds to see Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. And the band blew her mind so much that she decided that she had to be in a band. And she goes, and then when Mitch would pass out on stage toward the end of the show, kind of like a James Brown thing.
Sure.
And the drummer would come out from behind the drums and take his shoe off and hold his shoe over Mitch's face to revive Mitch.
Come on.
And Mitch would pop up back to life and grab the mic and start singing again. She goes, I knew I had to be in rock and roll. So I went back for the second show and they did the exact same routine. Mitch passed out and B would revive him with the shoe. She goes, then I loved him even more. And I saw Jim McCarty on guitar and she goes, I knew I had to play the guitar. David Johansen, same thing.
Yeah.
The New York Dolls. He goes, no, I didn't even play music. I saw Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels and that was it. They were the American Rolling Stones.
I thought so. Yeah, Bob Crew generation, right? Pure pop for now people.
Exactly.
You know what? I said that to Mitch Ryder. I can't believe that just came to the forefront of my brain.
Right.
Pure pop for now people.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool was that? That was so laughing, I can't stand it, man.
Yeah, so what does he know about rock and roll?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I have a hypothetical. I don't mean to stop where we were going with this. I have a question that I'm going to ask Bob Seger, and I've never had the courage to ask him.
Right.
And I'm going to get you ready to play guitar and get you out of here because I know you're a busy guy. I got a question for you. You got a drummer in Don Brewer.
Yeah.
The Brew Crew, okay?
He's awesome.
And he's got two gigs.
Right.
He's got one with Grand Funk, and he's got one with Bob Seger. His contract keeps him with, this is the sound that you hear in the background, ladies and gentlemen, is Tino G, Martin Gross, getting ready to play a song for us. You can use the other microphone if you want.
No,
I'll turn that mic up in just a second. Anyway, long story short, my question for you about Don Brewer, Bob Seger, the Silver Bullet Band, a concert. If you got Don Brewer, who can sing two songs really, really well, and one's called We're an American Band.
Wow.
If you're Bob Seger, don't you take a break and say, ladies and gentlemen, I think you all know who this guy is on the drum kit. His name's Don Brewer from Grand Funk Railroad.
You would think.
I'm going to get out of here for a couple of minutes, like they do with the Eagles, and they all take a breather. Don't you think that's a great idea? Are you ready to rock and roll?
Well, I mean, yeah, give the drummer some, man. That's an old song,
I
thing is,
always thought if Bob Seger were to say, I'm going to get out of the way for a couple of jams because I know that this band is ready to rock and roll with Don Brewer, and let him do a couple of your favorites from Grand Funk. And I think he'll know the songs he's about to do for you. Donnie, take it from here, and let him handle it.
I'm sure a lot of people would love that,
And, and how about the locomotion?
But it's the Seger show, it's the Bob Seger show, and they're hiring Don to be the drummer. So the mentality is,
just an idea.
It's Seger that they're coming to see.
It was an idea.
And, I would love to see that, but I kind of get what their focus in the show is all, because Bob doesn't even have enough time to do all his hits.
Yeah, that's true.
They got to leave stuff out that's
Yeah.
great, and but
Tino G just shot me down in flames, man. My idea. All right,
well, you'd have to run it by punch,
well, end of story.
and you know where that's going to go.
Yeah, right. So, what are you playing? What kind of acoustic guitar you got there?
This is just a cheap Fender.
Yeah,
I'm not one of those expensive guitar guys.
I can do another microphone if you want. If you want to take that third mic and pull it over.
This one here?
See the one over there? Yeah, I can turn that up.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ken Calvert Show podcast. I like those noises. You were the one that told me people like that, so you better be right. I'm going to put this thing right
just
up.
Flying.
Yeah, let's do it too in
Flying
Detroit
live,
City,
man.
just
Oh,
like
this
I
is
pictured
great.
it. Skyscrapers and everything. What are you going to do for me?
You can hear that?
Yeah. Very
Okay,
well.
so this is a song I wrote.
I'm going to turn my microphone down.
This is kind of a story when I was, living in Detroit as a young man, and I told the story about my parents got divorced. There was another kid in my neighborhood whose parents had gotten divorced, and his name was Jimmy Recca, and he played bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I played the drums at the time. So Jimmy's parents were divorced, and things were kind of unstable at his crib. So he was like, "Hey, can I move in with you guys?" And I asked my mom. She goes, "Yeah, Jim can move in."
Really?
So my little buddy gets to move in, and he's living in our basement, and we would practice together. Yeah. And he'd go out to Ann Arbor and hitchhike and go around and explore the area. And he'd get into these house parties out in Ann Arbor. Now, we were like 16 or something, And somehow he met the Stooges. He ended up at a band house where they were practicing and they jammed. So one day there's a knock on my door, and it was Iggy and the Stooges. They came over and they were like, "Hi, we're looking for your roommate, Jim, the guy that lives in the basement. We need him to join the Stooges." I was like, "Wow, man, this is great." So I go, "Well, I'll give him the message, And so we were trying to get the message to Jimmy. The Stooges need a bass player, and they want you. So he ended up getting the gig. And one day I get a phone call, and he says, "Hey, man, we got this show at the East Town tonight. Our drummer, Scott Ashton, just crashed the van under a viaduct in Ann Arbor that was too low, and he tried to go under it with the equipment van, and he sheared the roof off the van. He broke both of his hands. His face is all bashed in. We need you to come down and be the drummer for the Stooges, So I'm like, wow, Mom, can I go down to the East Town? She's, "Yeah, get the hell out of here." So I go down there, and the Stooges are basically showing me the songs backstage,
Yeah.
And hold on, let me take
1969,
a drink here.
okay. I said a boo-hoo and a...
Yeah, they're showing me the songs, and I'm learning with the Ashton brothers, and every now and then the door would open, and Iggy would poke his head in there and kind of give me the stink eye and look at me, and take off. So Iggy comes back. The roadie shows up. He's got a big paper bag, and he's like, "Iggy," he's very apologetic. "Iggy, I'm sorry, but I couldn't get the gold, so I got the silver instead." And Iggy's like, "Oh, you idiot, I told you to get gold." And I'm thinking, what are they talking about, man? Iggy's wearing nothing but blue jeans. He has no belt on. He's bare-chested, the Iggy
Sure.
look.
Oh, yeah.
So he goes, "Okay, let's do this." And the guy opens the bag, and he pulls out a giant bottle of Johnson's baby oil. And he opens it, and he pours it on Iggy's head. And this oil's running down Iggy's body, and he's wiping it on his chest. And the oil makes his pants start to fall down because he's so slippery now, right?
Right, yeah.
So the roadie opens the backstage door, and he just yells out the door, "Iggy needs a belt." All of a sudden, all these thin little girl arms come through the doorway holding these belts, and he just slams the door on the arms, and all the belts fall to the ground, and he picks up a belt. He gives it to Iggy. Iggy puts the belt on. He goes, "Come on, let's finish." I'm going, what is he doing? So now the guy goes in the bag, and he pulls out these little jars of silver art glitter. And he opens it and he pours it over Iggy's head, and this cloud of glitter dust comes down, and it sticks to his body because he's covered in oil, man. And I'm like, now Iggy's totally Metal Flake, right? I'm like, holy shit. And then there's a knock at the door. The sax player walks in. His name is Steve McKay. Rest in peace, Steve. Iggy goes, I got a great idea. Let's let the sax player be the drummer. And the whole band's just like, oh, they're rolling their eyes. Like, this is not cool, man. But he goes, come on, Steve can play drums. Let's go. So they go out to do this show, and Steve has never played drums in his life. And Iggy's stopping him during the songs, and the groove is terrible. And he's kind of putting his arms around him from behind, like, you know, when a guy teaches a woman how to play golf, you know, you get
sure,
him, he's doing that, and he's moving the guy's arms like a drum lesson at the East Town in front of the crowd, who's getting really pissed off, and they start booing and boo, and the crowd's just basically turns on the Stooges, man. And Iggy starts messing with the crowd. He's flipping them the bird. He starts spitting on them. He falls into the audience, and the crowd just carries him way, way out into the crowd. And the jocks are just beating Iggy's ass, man. I mean, they're punching him and socking him. And so the roadie dude comes back, and he gets the mic cord, and he's tugging like a tug of war with Iggy. And he reels Iggy back to the stage.
This is amazing.
I'm like, I've never seen anything like this, right? Yeah. Iggy gets back on stage, and he's just sitting cross-legged, and he just hurls, man. He just throws up right on stage. Now the crowd is like really mad. They're just throwing shit at him. Standing side stage was one of these bands from England. Like, they had on the halter tops and the velvet bell bottoms and the platform shoes and beautifully coiffed hair. And they're just watching this with this look of horror on their face. Like, what's going on in Detroit? Yeah. You know? And so the whole show lasted about 8 minutes. The band unplugs. Everybody stomps off stage. Crowd is angry. And these guys are watching this just like, they don't know what to make of it. And reflecting back on it, it was like they were inventing punk rock at that time. That was like a performance art show that really set an attitude and a tone to what was to become punk rock. I mean, This had never been done. This was like new.
All right, 2 questions.
Yeah.
So you didn't play the drums?
I didn't play the drums.
You provided the drums?
No, the drums were there.
Okay. All right.
So that prompted me to write the song I'm about to play.
Okay. Now, number 2.
Yeah.
Who was the band watching this?
I can't remember.
I thought you were going to say Led Zeppelin or something like that.
It could have been Savoy Brown.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
You know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So this song we're about to hear.
It's called I Almost Played with the Stooges.
I Almost Played with the Stooges.
Right.
See what you did to me there, partner.
Well, I forgot all about this. And then these movies came out with Jim Jarmusch's film, Gimme Danger.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you know, some really in-depth, This Was a Famous Day.
Okay.
When the Stooges crashed the van and had this totally messed up show at the East Town. And I was like, whoa, I was there. I was the guy that was going to be the drummer. I was backstage at this famous show.
All right, I'm turning my mic down.
And so I was like, what a great song, man. Songwriters tell stories. You put your true stories to song, that's the job. So I was like, well, this would be a fun song. So I'd like to play it for you. Yeah. It's called I Almost Played with the Stooges. There we go. Telephone rang about 2 p.m. My friend Jimmy Wrecker was on the other end. Stooges got a show at the East Town tonight. Our singer Iggy Pop is getting real uptight because the drummer crashed the van, smashed his face and broke his hand. Rock and roll is tough and it's full of abuses, but I almost played with the Stooges. I almost played with the Stooges. Yeah. So there was people in the back room. They said, get ready, Tino, you're gonna play real soon. Now here's a brand new one, it's called 1969. I said, Mr. Ashton, that song is so fine, but your drummer crashed the van. Broke his face and smashed his hand. Rock and roll is tough and it's full of abuses, but I almost played with the Stooges. You know I almost played with the Stooges, yeah. So there was people in the back room. They said, get ready, Tino, you're gonna play real soon. Then Iggy Pop showed up and said, man, it's a bummer, but tonight the saxophone player's gonna be our drummer. You know the man crashed the van, smashed his face and broke his hand. Rock and roll is tough, man, it's full of abuses, but I almost played with the Stooges. You know I almost played with the Stooges. You know I almost played with the Stooges. Yeah, you know I almost played with Detroit's greatest rock and roll band of all time. You know I almost played with the Stooges. Yeah, yeah, it's a true story.
Well, there you go, man. Wow. You almost played with the Stooges. Yeah. Hey, I want to thank you.
Thank you, brother.
I want to congratulate you on all of your successes. Many more to come.
Thank you, brother. Yes.
And tell Lexi I said hello.
I will.
And quickly, your kids are doing great.
Everybody's blessed, man. I've got two daughters. They both moved out of the house. One's in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And she's, she graduated. She got a free scholarship to U of M for having such good grades.
Yeah.
And she aced it, graduated, and she's at a think tank in Brooklyn, just, doing like cool undercover work, And then the other daughter has, she's married down in, she's in South Carolina, and she has two beautiful boys that are my grandsons. So I just have a ball with these little guys.
All right,
we just party, man, and it's...
How do people get in touch with you in terms of seeing I know you're playing around town, about town, in town.
FunkyDRecords.com.
Okay.
You can email me right there.
And people can always find you on Facebook.
Facebook, of course. Yeah, all the social media.
You're good at that. You're good at that.
You have to be.
Stuff.
I mean, it's that's what's good about it, is if you're in the music business.
Yeah.
It's perfect for that.
Yeah, you selling merch?
Tons.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
You didn't bring anything with you?
Well, I brought you a CD and a poster.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, look,
I'm just kidding.
I'll get you a shirt, man. What are you, a medium, small?
And ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time we have on the Ken Calvert Show podcast. I want to thank my dear friend. It's been way too long. Way too long, man.
It's good to see you, man.
Thanks for joining us here.
You bet.
We'll talk to you soon, everybody. It's Ken Calvert along with Martin Gross, Tino G's. Run it all down for me one more time.
Well, the new band that I'm out playing with is called Tino G's Dumpster Machine.
Okay.
And we have a new album. It's called Low Flying.
Uh-huh.
And it's on the Funky D Records label. You get it at funkydrecords.com. And come out and see us at some live shows, too.
You will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time. All right. Be well, everybody. Talk to you soon.
You can subscribe to the Ken Calvert Show podcast on Apple iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. It's also available by going directly to www.thekencalvertshow.com. You can reach Ken at kencalvertpodcast@gmail.com. The preceding program is the property of Ken Calvert and may not be rebroadcast without the written permission of Ken Calvert.